It's that timeless pursuit of when art merges with the artist, where we put ourselves out there, find that moment of motivation, and ride the momentum, and then love the very art we create. These are all deeply linked to the soul of who we are. Some say you might be able to measure that, but perhaps it is a blind pursuit. Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to 21 Grams. I am your host, Joe Compton. And yes, I've got Eric Distad with me, and I'm so excited to have him here. So he's familiar, most people who frequent our channel are pretty familiar with you because we've done a few things with the Faithful Sidekicks and over the years. And now it's just you, and that's going to be awesome to talk about.
Thank you, Joe.
It's nice to have you here, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate this.
Happy to be here.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you. And just give us an overview of who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. My name is Eric Distad. I am a singer and songwriter out of Oregon City, Oregon. I've been doing singer-songwriter style music and whatnot for just over 20 years. For about 10 of those years, I've been doing a duo with my wife called the Faithful Sidekicks, where we do nerdy, funny folk pop stuff that is kind of the quintessential. When people think of us, they think of our song Han Solo for President, which is, it's a funny song about what if Han Solo were the president. But I mean, we do a kind of a range of stuff. But before we did the Faithful Sidekicks, I was doing stuff that was a little bit more serious singer-songwriter. And so this album is kind of a return to that. What else do you want to know? What other information do you want to? I am a founding member of something called FALM, February Album Writing Month, which is a challenge of songwriters to write 14 songs in 28 days through the month of February. So a lot of material gets written in February, and we have several thousand participants from around the globe now. That it's been going for just over 20 years as well. So
nice. It was some of that founded here on this album for you, or did you write some of that during that time period for this album?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the songs on this album started in one sense or another as FALM songs. Not all of them, but there's a couple that were written this last February that I wasn't anticipating. Like, I had planned out tracks that were going to go on this album before February, but a couple of the songs that I wrote during February were ones that you write something and you feel it, and you get feedback from other people who are like, that's going on the album, right? You're going to put that on the album, right? When you get that kind of feedback, you kind of have to take it seriously. And
right.
So, because one of the things that happens in FALM is you can leave feedback for other songwriters, but you take into account that these songs are brand new. They're literally like a day old. So sometimes it takes a song a while to mature and whatnot. But generally, if you write something in that moment and 6 months later it's still resonating with you, you still feel like the message is right, what you were saying feels correct, then it needs to get out there. And so, like, the very first track on the album, Things Are Getting Better, was a FALM write from this last February. So
nice. That's awesome. I love that. We've got some audience participation here already. So just say hello to everybody. Corbin's World, Sunny is here. Yes. So the thing that really struck me about this album really is you kind of bare your soul in a lot of respects, but it's kind of it's in a unique fashion, right? It's not like this whole like, oh, woe's me, or here's what I'm here's what I'm hesitant about, or what fears I have. This is more of like a love letter to music in a lot of respects, and and a lot of what music has done for you in these songs. And was that surprising to you that that came out for you, or was that something that you were aiming for?
A little bit of both. So, the entire time that we've been doing the Faithful Sidekicks, I've been writing stuff that is more like what's on the other side. And some of these are the songs that are the conversation that you're having between your head and your heart. They're the things that you are trying to tell yourself. You don't realize it until you get there and then go, whoa, what am I saying here? What's going on here? And in many cases, it is this love letter to people and music and circumstances. In some cases, it's a love letter to the world. And in some cases, it's like you have an emotional reaction to something and you process it and you can go, okay, the way I can deal with this is I can maybe let it ferment inside me and become bitterness, or I can try and turn it out and make it to other people, to the world, to music, to whatever, basically trying to turn outward with the thought and the emotion. And so a lot of these songs, some of them have been just sitting kind of in the back burner. Like I wrote them a couple of years ago and I still love them. I still believe in them. But we were concentrating on trying to get the funny stuff for the Faithful Sidekicks out. And that's good. That's awesome. But sometimes you hit a point where this stuff has to come out. This stuff has to be there. One of the things that has been a big deal on this album is I've had more friends that were part of this album. And in many cases, some of why certain album choices were made, why certain songs were even picked, were based on the feedback that these friends and collaborators brought into the process, that were like, this is so. For example, there's a couple songs on here that I wrote them during FOM and I still liked the song, but I was kind of scared to put them on the album. Like they felt almost too personal, or maybe too pointed, or something like that, or just I wasn't sure that they were necessarily good enough. And these collaborators are like, no, the people I need to hear this. If you can't do it for anybody else, put this on the album for me. And that's huge. That's a special thing when someone gets what you're doing, when someone connects to this piece of art you've made and it touches them. That is not a small thing ever. One of the things that I struggled with, like before we were doing Faithful Sidekicks, was I was writing songs that, had these kind of depth to or whatnot. And you played in a coffee shop and you got the guy in the corner who puts his headphones on and turns the volume up because he's not there for you. He's not there to get a musical meal. He's there just because he needs to work on his PowerPoint presentation. And it's finding your audience and connecting to them and being able to share a song with them and have them react is just, it is everything. It is that kind of fulfillment of the song is communication. You've communicated it and the message is received. That is so immensely gratifying. So
that's awesome. I love all that. I was going to get into the collaborative part of this as well, but I'm curious too, when you're arranging such a myriad of your own personal thoughts and feelings, is that a different type of arranging for you song wise than it is, with the Faithful Sidekicks and what you're doing or what you've done in the past? Has this been kind of an exercise in kind of, creating a narrative almost?
Yeah. In some ways. So the approach of the Faithful Sidekicks has a kind of a dependable, like there's a niche of folk pop, right? And so you start with verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, that kind of structure. And you start with, you've got like a drum beat and, you kind of have some ideas, you want to put some joke lines in here, or you want to have this subject that is the kind of the overarching design that you're building in. So like if you're writing a song about Star Wars, you kind of have a laundry list of Star Wars references you can include, and you kind of know who you're talking to. The Star Wars fans are going to get it. People who've never seen Star Wars are going to be confused. Fair enough. The songs on this album, in many cases, was trying to filter through what I was actually trying to say and trying to find the way to present it that would communicate to those people who could understand it. And I say could because there's a lot of people who probably wouldn't generally dive into it. And that's okay. That's fine. But it is a little bit of a weird place to put your brain, like going into something and writing it so that you are your first reader, your first audience. If the story you're telling is effective for you, and you're not trying to tell a story to the Star Wars fan or the Star Trek fan, but you're trying to tell a story that resonates with you, with the hope that people like you will be there with you, it changes how you approach things, and it's much scarier. And the arrangements in some cases, you start winnowing down to try and figure out what your expectations for the song is. I'm not starting with a folk pop bridge chorus mentality right from the get-go. I'm not starting from there's going to be joke here, joke here, joke here. But instead, I'm starting with this is the thing that I need to parse. This is the concept that I need to make happen. So I'll give you an example from the album. The very first song, again, Things Are Getting Better. I originally set out to write a happy song in the style of the 60s. Like very hoorah, things are getting better, kind of stuff. And I was playing around this alt tuning on my guitar, and I got part of the way through it, and I just could not believe it. I just could not make it happen. And I get to this part of the song where, no, that's not how this works. Things are getting better because we make them so. It is our job, our responsibility, our duty to go out and do the work. That is how things get better. It just doesn't magically happen. And that literally in the process of writing that song, where you realize what I'm trying to say is things are getting better by the light we show. Suddenly the song just took a left turn, and it became what it ended up being, because I discovered in this process that the story I needed to tell myself was I've got to do the work. I've got to get out there and do the thing. And hopefully people will hear that and agree. Not everyone will probably agree, but at least they've heard it, hopefully. And that's always the trick. But like the song arrangement wise does not follow a standard structure, because the path that I took to get there didn't follow a standard structure. I followed the bread trail, kind of like writing a story where the character revolts and suddenly you're off someplace else because the character decided to do something, and you're like, in theory, you should be in charge of the character.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works.
Corwin's World says 100% the whole bearing your soul thing done honestly, it can be intimidating. So
it very much is. There's to some degree, there's a little bit of safety in doing a song that is structured for a preset audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where the laugh lines are going to be. That if you make a reference to Han Solo and Carbonite, the people who are fans of Han Solo will go, yeah, I got that reference.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a song where the only piece to it is what you're feeling at the time, and you're putting that out there, and you're literally taking like a chunk of your heart and putting it out there in front of people and saying, this is important to me. This is something that I need you to hear. And the risk is no one's going to listen, or worse, they're going to stomp on it.
Hmm.
but that's how you do it. That's the calling. That's what you have to do. And it's not easy, and it's scary, but
You also put a lot of production behind this one. There's a lot of, there's a lot of choruses that are, you have multiple singers on. You have different instruments playing. You tend to, not just strumming your guitar. There's other things going on there and things like that. Was that kind of something you wanted to do too? You wanted to give that experience to yourself a little bit more for this?
um, yeah, to some degree, I will actually say so. Part of what happened, so I've had the honor and the privilege to produce albums for a few other people over the last couple of years, last couple summers. And so Lauren Oxford, Jen Midkiff, Summer Russell have all been in my studio over the last 2 summers and made albums. And Lauren and Summer and our friend Sonny, who is a violinist, came down to my studio this last summer, and they had heard demos of the songs, and I went into it with going, let's see what we can do. Let's just step back from preconceived notions and see what together we produce. And what we produced was magnificent, but there were points where, someone comes up with a harmony part and someone else goes, I've got one to go with that one. Can we try it? Yes, let's try it. The always yes and kind of approach where you just keep trying new things and adding new things with the idea that, yeah, you can always edit them, scale them back if you need to. But when you get the energy rolling and everyone is working together, I don't know of anything else like it, where you've got that kind of energy where everyone is working together and making something happen in just such a. We did 26 harmony parts, 7 violin parts, 3 guitar parts, 2 banjo parts in 4 days. Because we were rolling, and that was sort of, in some ways, I scaled back on production. Like, I didn't do any of the songs to click tracks. I didn't do any of the songs with the idea that drums were going to go into it. I didn't go into it with the idea that I was going to do lots of electric guitar or textures or whatnot. I was trying to step back to a point to let those voices coming together shine. Like, I was putting the emphasis on vocal harmonies and the melodies and the lyric to come forward and step forward and take center stage. And so a lot of the choices we made about instrumentation, a lot of it in some cases is there's a feel that happens as you start building, and you hit like some of these choruses where it just needs to go boom and bloom, but it needs to bloom organically. It needs to be lush and present, but not like thunder drums and AC/DC. It has to just be what it is. And so a lot of the process was discovering what these songs were in this state. Like, I started off with a song as a demo with me and an acoustic guitar, and I knew how that would work, and I had an idea of how it could come out on the album. But working with the people together as we made this stuff, it became something slightly different, but in the best way. And part of the whole process is taking a step back from what you expect and embracing the thing that you get. It's sort of like, you can hang on to the copper, but the gold is right here. So
Yeah.
just go deep and run with it. When you have that caliber of a musician that are there and wanting to invest in your project, heck yes, take them up on it. Do all you can to involve them and support them. And I am so incredibly grateful to all of them. They made this thing something so special. Maybe I'm the only one who feels that way, but I feel like it's pretty special. So,
Was there a moment during the process of making this that you had an aha moment and that you felt like, okay, this is right. This is something I'm doing right?
there were several. Ironically, so one of the songs on here is called Mount Midas, and it's a weird little critique of greed and capitalism. And I hadn't originally been planning to put it on the album because I wasn't sure that it fit, and it has some pointedness to it that I wasn't sure people were going to necessarily like. And all the people that were there working were like, this is going on the album. And there was a point where we were recording and they're like, oh, let's go do this. Let's go do this. And they went in. And so there's a point in the chorus where, or the bridge where there's all there is more. And they popped in and did a vocal more. And we did it as multi-part harmony. So it was one person going in, doing a more, the other person going in, doing it as a more, another person going in and doing, so like 2 or 3 people doing more, just one little word. And then you sit back and you pull it up together in the DAW and you line it up and you hit it and you listen to it and go, all there is more, and you throw a little reverb on it. All of a sudden it's like, dang, that really, really works. I would not have expected it to work, but it worked really well. A lot of little things like that happened that were just like, I wasn't expecting it, but I will take it. And that's the magic of the studio, is if you can find that flow and embrace it and get that kind of, I wasn't expecting it, but I will take it. It can make things so wonderful. So
I'm curious what Jen's involvement was in all this. Was she just ready to cheer you on? Did she help any way shape anything that you were doing with this?
She basically was there as cheering on. She helped run like the logistics of people coming and staying at the house. And there's one of the songs on the album that she, we used to play live together before we were doing, I mean, it goes back from before the Faithful Sidekicks, and she was going to do bass on that, but then we ran out of time and I ended up just doing the bass for it. But for the most part, her involvement was pushing me to do it big time. She's been after me for years to do it. She knows that it was something that I wanted to do and needed to do. And I kept on just sort of putting it off because we played out in coffee shops as the Eric Distad duo for a long time before we formed the Faithful Sidekicks. And you can only play so many coffee shops for 2 people or 3 people before you're finally like,
yeah.
And she's never complained. She's always been right there and ready to do it. And she saw me writing a lot of stuff for the Faithful Sidekicks. But then I'm writing this other stuff on the side and just sitting it in a folder and just not talking about it. And she's like, "You're gonna do another solo album, right?" No one wants that. And she's like, "Yes, they do. Shut up." And she, I think, was right. She was the first and best cheerleader on all of this stuff, and she has pushed me to keep doing this stuff. One of the things that was a little bit weird and awkward is because we've been doing as a duo for a long time, doing something without her actually felt strange and odd. But at the same point, it makes it sort of like we go to a convention and play as the Faithful Sidekicks. I can have her up as a guest instrumentalist, but there's no expectation that she has to be on stage the entire time if I'm doing a solo show. It's just we're still figuring some of the stuff out, but I think it came down to, this is something that I needed to do, and she was 110% behind me the whole way and pushing even when I was dragging my feet.
Was there a song that you can remember that you had in the bag or from earlier that maybe you wanted it, like parts of it worked, but not all of it worked, that you kind of had to rework? Did you have any reworking jobs that you had to do on this at all? Or did you feel like you picked the songs purposely that were going to work?
There were some that were just, we just knew. There was some that needed some rework from some slight arrangement standpoints. There's a lot of the things where the arrangements updated themselves as we worked through them.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these songs, for the most part, were pretty well crystallized before we started the tracking for this. Some of these songs, so like the third song on the album, Dig Right In, was written in 2012. So it's been sitting in my to add to an album pile for 12 years. And it, in essence, followed the way that we played it for a very long time. That structure is a little bit unusual, but it pretty much follows exactly how that happened. There's some other ones where the arrangements took on their own life as we worked with other instrumentalists and other vocalists, and it's sort of like the shape of the song was the same, but the color and the texture is different. If that makes any sense. And so it's kind of like, from an arrangement standpoint, if you think of it just as strictly as section A, section B, those sections are about the same, but the choices on how they looked and felt and whatnot did change. So there's a song on here called The Easter Bunny Vault that I've played for a long time. And my original plan for it had been with drums and much more elaborate production. And my collaborators and Jen basically like, yeah, but the essence of that song is you and a guitar telling a story.
Yeah.
It's a story song. It is a weird story song, but it's a story song. So just tell the story. Just do this as you. You don't need the production. And production can be a little bit of a safety blanket.
Yeah.
You add layers to disguise and hide some of your inadequacies or your feelings of, this is not, standing out and doing just a voice and guitar is slightly terrifying. But it can be rewarding. And I think it was the right call. I mean, y'all can tell me, but the song itself is one that has a special place. And so it kind of lives in this arrangement where it almost devolved back to the very first way I did it years ago.
That's interesting.
In a guitar.
Yeah. Because I asked that question because for me as a writer, I had to go back and do something at an older thing that I did before. And then what I was finding was, and I was just going to rework it. I was just going to sprinkle in certain things and change just a little bit of structure to make it work, right? And what I found before is that I'm a much better writer than I was back then. And so I ended up just kind of rewriting the whole thing almost in that respect. And I'm curious if that's why I asked that question, if that happens to songwriters. Did you feel like sometimes you have to rework it because you're just in a better place, you know structure better, or you have a better ear for things, or the words are just easier for you? I mean, those kind of aspects.
Yeah, I think my philosophy on even any form of songwriting is a song is never officially done until you stop performing it or you stop singing it. The one thing is a little bit different is when you're putting it on a CD, you're now putting it in a fairly crystallized version that a lot of people are going to hear. So you want to be sure that you've refined enough to the point that you can be moderately happy with it 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Because people will be listening to it, hopefully 5 years from now or longer in this form. But a lot of these songs probably, as you perform them more and you play them more, they get refined. I tend to refine as I go. Some of them are very different than when they were first written. And so the advantage of having some of these been sitting in a back catalog for years is they've had time to mature and age and refine. But one of the problems actually was in a couple of cases of these songs where it had been so long since I played them, I forgot how to play them. I actually had to sit down and figure out the last time I played it was 4 years ago. How did I do this? Oh, right. It's in an alt tuning. It's in a weird alt tuning. And I don't remember how to play in that tuning. And so in some cases, the songs actually started semi-materially changed just because I don't think I actually pulled off playing it the way I originally played it.
Yeah.
But the way I play it now sounds correct enough for my brain that I'm okay with it.
It kind of sounds like being an actor on a stage play where each night you're changing just a little bit of inflection or doing something different just because you're trying something that you felt when you did it the first time didn't work, but in this case obviously it's muscle memory is a little different, so or you're more talented to go into a different tuning, so it's that aspect of it, but it's similar in that respect.
Yeah, it is a mixture of that and also going through, and one of the things you find that you write a song out, you think the scansion lines up, you think the pulse and the rhythm is correct, and then you play it times and you think you're okay, and then the first time you perform it and you face plant it because it turns out you have too many syllables for that distance and you have to refine back and find, and in many cases it's also refining what works with the audience but also works for you, and what in many cases refining down and narrowing the focus and trying to use the words that are going to have the nuance and layer that you want. So one of the things I've done fiction writing and stuff like that. And one of the things about songwriting is in many cases, like poetry, you're taking what you could use multiple sentences to describe and trying to distill it down to a very tight essence.
Sure.
Sometimes words are doing, you may have, I tend to use word choices that may do a lot of heavy lifting because there are multiple ways you can take the connotation of a word. And that's why I run into not everyone's ready for the meal because sometimes you think through the lyrics and go, did he mean this or did he mean this? I meant them both.
Well, David's backing you up on Bunny. He says, I think with the Bunny song, isolation is an important theme to the song. So a spare arrangement with limited production, no harmonies is the right call in his opinion. So.
Thank you, David. Yeah. It is the Chocolate Bunny songs, its nickname, the Easter Bunny Vault, it has this weird impact. The times we would play it live, the times I would play it live, I would get a wide range of reactions. One play it, I get someone who would be crying. The next time I'd have people laughing. And it took me a while to understand that both of those worked, and that was fine. So, yeah, you can't
control how the audience is going to react. At least they react, right?
See, one of the first times I played it, I was playing it for a songwriter showcase, and I'd only seen people crying from this song, and there was a group in the back corner that were laughing, and I was like, they must not have gotten the joke or must not have gotten the idea. So I finished the song and tried to explain it to them, and Jen was like, stop. They got it. You don't need to explain anything. So
how are you going to approach I know you said you've played some of these songs live before, but how are you going to approach the live aspect? Are you going to go out on your own as Eric and represent this album for yourself, or are you going to mix it in with Faithful Sidekick shows? How are you looking at performing this for right now?
For right now, most likely I will be doing this solo. I'm looking at maybe doing some open mics and some small venues. We have done, like I did a concert. I was fortunate enough to do a concert for a convention a couple weekends ago in Chicago, and we actually had almost everybody that was on the album was at that convention. So we did a lot of these songs live with full harmonies and full instrumentation, and it was fantastic. And that's a pretty. If I had my druthers, I would do that all the time, but probably not likely. But it's trying to find the the balance. I know Jen would probably be willing to play along and do some of these, but I think for simplicity's sake, it's probably going to be me doing them solo or I don't know. I haven't quite decided all that I'm going to do with this yet. There was so much focus on getting it out after having dragged my feet for a decade that but one of the other things too is we've lived in Portland now, or the Portland area, for several years, and I have not made a lot of connections to local venues, and so I'm going to try and I think do some of that as well. Try and get out, and that it makes it easier to be able to I don't have to work around Jen's schedule if I want to go and try and do an open mic or something. But
yeah, I mean, like songs like Anakin or Mount Midas or something like that. Those would kind of they're thematically, kind of in the vein. I mean, obviously they're not funny, jokey songs that the Faithful Sidekicks are, but at least they have some connection to that aspect of who you are, right? So,
and I mean, there's songs. So like the song like Rain is taken from the ending of Lord of the Rings, where again I'm telling them not all tears are an evil. I mean, that was a lot of my songs. Like, if like I can tell you where some of the stuff came from, and a lot of it came from my interconnection with fantasy and sci-fi. Some of them come directly from like the writing of Terry Pratchett, for example. And so some of those, like Anakin is one that we could easily do as the Faithful Sidekicks. But we also have a decade worth of material at this point. Our probably one of our biggest struggles is trying to pick material for a set list, because it's always difficult to know, okay, this is a kind we played before, but what are the odds that there will be new people in the audience? You have to find the balance between old standards and new material. And
can I talk to you a little bit about that? I know that this is not a Faithful Sidekicks
by all means.
I'm fascinated by it because lately when I've gone to concerts, it's usually been festival shows, and a lot of these bands will choose something that's thematic to them, right? Like they'll be celebrating their first album and play the entirety of the first album or something to that effect, right? But a lot of them take the opportunity to just play the hits out, and then some of them go the complete opposite direction and decide we're going to go with the with the fan base and the most obscure deep tracks we can find, right?
That's central, right?
Yeah, I mean, for you, knowing that you have an audience, especially like at Dragon Con and a built-in audience like that, are you very cautious about going deeper, or are you more cautious about trying to not be the same where you're playing just the hits kind of idea?
We tend to have a few songs on our set list that we think of as like 10 poles, like
right. Han Solo for President has to be played, right? I mean, that has to be played, right?
Yeah, there's like Achievement Unlocked tends to be one that, like, if we don't play it, people will be disappointed, and that's fine. We're not tired of playing them. Particularly if people are interested in the song and people are into it, we're into it. We just want to play what they want to hear. But we also want to be able to get some new material out there, because sometimes we have songs that we feel like people need to hear. So there's a song that we've been doing lately called I Need Cookies. That's about the value of escapism. And specifically, we need board games and baking and cookies galore. We need Pixar, and I need Iroh, and I need tea. I mean, we need the things that we love to remember how to be me. I need to. Our social media is such a firestorm all the time, and that seems to be the way we interact with the world. And if that's our view of the world, boy, are we in trouble. So we need to be able to step back and enjoy cookies, enjoy walking outside, enjoy the rain even. And so but it's, you know, it has a lot of references to specific things that we love about fandom and Star Wars and Star Trek and Babylon 4, 5.
Mhm.
But those songs are ones that we feel like we need to get out there and talk about, and hopefully also help people rejoice in these things that they love. So we've been putting those into the set, but we still have the 10 poles.
Yeah.
The issue is, as you get more songs that people actually say they really like this song, suddenly you have more 10 poles.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful problem to have, though. But
Yeah.
we try and pick a set list that will have a certain amount of arc to it,
Yeah.
where, you know, energy is going up and down. So your middle songs are maybe a little bit mid tempo, and your higher energy songs are on the outside edges, and you have a couple of 10 poles, one at the front, one at the back. So the worst case scenario, someone comes and has to go to another panel or something, they get to hear one of the songs they wanted to hear, and they're happy. And the same thing happens towards the end. We pretty much always end with Han Solo, because for years we would play Han Solo early, and people were like, "Oh, did you guys already play it? But can you play it again?" Like, "Hey, sure." So we just finally put it at the end. But
do you ever call audibles? Is there certain songs that just never you played once and didn't work, and then you kind of decide, well, let's not do that again, even though it's on the set list right now?
yeah, and actually, so when we do a set list, it's actually a Google Doc spreadsheet with rows, and then there's a whole nother set of songs with A numbers after them that are audible numbers. Sometimes the audible numbers are, the audience is not feeling this. This is not a comedy audience. They want heavy. We could pull something heavy out, or vice versa. The heavy's not landing. But sometimes it is, I'm coming into a show with a sore throat, or Jen's coming into the show with a sore throat, or she's got some fatigue going on, or something where we need to build a break-in, or we need to do something like that. And so we have songs that we'll swap in for purely just logistical reasons, because a performance is a physical endeavor, and you have to conserve your spoons for the whole thing. But yeah, there's also a lot of times where there will be points where I'll call an audible on a song, just because even though the audience is with us and everything feels right, at that exact moment, I just don't feel it. And I would rather play a song that is meaningful to me and something I can deliver than half-ass it and kind of, it's like, I would rather put 100% into these songs and have our performance leave nothing behind, leave it all on the stage, as they say, than just dial it in, just phone it in. So sometimes that's just a matter of picking a song that you are just feeling at that moment.
Nice. I'm wondering what this experience has done for you personally, going through this and processing it, and now seeing it out in the world. What is that done for you? What do you feel after all of this?
With this album, I'm feeling an immense amount of gratitude to the people that came alongside and believed in stuff that I thought was nobody wanted. Like I knew I could do funny stuff that people would want to hear. Okay, great. I can make that happen. I'm fine entertaining people, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to have the privilege to be in front of people and perform for them and entertain them, and I'm absolutely thrilled to do that. These songs are chunks of my heart, the same way that the Faithful Sidekick stuff are chunks of my heart, but they're different aspects, and some of these are deep, and you can't assume that people are going to want to put the time in to listen to them. And the thing that I've learned over the years is that anything you present, whatever art it happens to be, you're asking something of your audience. You're asking them to come with you on a journey. And some people are like, I'm comfy. I don't want to go on a journey.
Right.
I got my sweats on. I'm not leaving the house, you know? And that's okay. We're not here to force anyone to go out to the mall. But you're asking them to come with you, and you're kind of in essence, the offering you're making is one where I'm giving you a chunk of my heart. You don't have to accept it. If you do, there could be something wonderful here for you, but it's sort of something you have to ingest and put on and take on. And sometimes accessing that stuff isn't as easy as we like to think it is. So like I came into this with, I'm doing this album because I've been saying I'm going to do it, but I don't know if anyone's going to want it. And what I've discovered is that there are people that want it, and that want it very much, and that people that believed in it, and the people that came and sang with me were all very invested in all of these songs, to a point that I struggled to believe when we were doing it. Was like they got not the top reference, they got all the references, they got all of it. And that is so special. And that makes the process of making the songs special, and that makes the end product special, because we were all together in the thoughts and the ideas. And that's just not something I expected, but something I'm so immensely grateful for. So the other thing that I would say is it I guess rekindled some of the songwriting thoughts that I had that I just had been shoving over in the corner for a long time out of assumptions. But it also gives me a little bit more energy to even do Faithful Psychic stuff. I now have like 2 viable channels to do things, and sometimes I feel like being funny, or sometimes I feel like writing a sweet, tender song about Star Trek. Sweet, I can do that. That's fine. Sometimes I don't have to write about Star Trek. I can write about the ocean and nothing but the ocean. So
nice. So between A Little Light and The Other Side, it's literally 12 years. I have a feeling we're not going to have to wait that long for a third one. Am I right?
No, you are correct. I don't think it's not going to be 12 years. I don't think it'll be next year, but there's plenty of material that I have been writing, and that will keep coming. I have things, and I think one of the things that has been also eye-opening is the people that I worked with, for some reason, still apparently want to work with me. So
that's nice. That's always a nice feeling.
and I am eager to continue to work with them, and to continue to explore what we can do together. I think that's one of the things that makes it most exciting and energizing, is when you find people who get what you do and are on that same wavelength. Man, that is precious. Just jump on it and stay on it. Just keep going. Try and find the ways that you can blend your voices. Part of it started when I produced some of their albums, and we got to know each other in that process of producing, and I tried to make their voices special and unique, and tried to find their voices and elevate them, to try and make their albums sound particularly like them. And they turned around and did the same for me. And that wasn't on my radar initially, but I'm so glad it was. I'm so glad it happened that way. So,
are you writing specific songs for specific reasons, or are you looking at songs and deciding whether they're going to fit into which category, Faithful Sidekicks or Eric's stuff?
So I tend to, I think with the Faithful Sidekick stuff, I tend to be a little bit more specific about it.
Mm-hmm.
The Eric Distad stuff, there will be songs that jump the tracks one way or the other. So there's a song on here called The Astronaut that was actually we did a Kickstarter for our third album, Our Kind of Strange. And one of the reward tiers was to write a custom song. And someone they said, I want a custom song. And we asked them for a prompt. What do you want the song to be about? And they asked for the song to be about kindness. And I struggled with it. And I finally basically went back to my history and went to a point in my life where kindness materially changed it, where I was not the same afterwards.
Right.
And was when I was in 5th grade and wanted to be an astronaut. And
nice.
That's awesome. That song started as something that was an offshoot of the Faithful Sidekicks, but it became something that became very much sort of one of the hearts of this album. And so, yeah, I go into things and think, well, I'm going to write a snarky, funny song about something, and then my brain ambushes me, and it ends up being dark and serious. And sometimes you'll have a dark and serious song that suddenly takes a left turn into satire, and the end result is, there are points where you can sit down and I'm going to write a short story about this specific event. Yeah. And you can try and build to that event, but the muse is not always reliable. It's you think you're doing something, but by the time you get to the end of it, it is something different. I think it's a matter of one of the things that I spent a long time doing is the other side was the other pile. The songs that I wrote that did not fit into this Faithful Sidekick stuff neatly. So they go in this box over here, and I'll worry about them later. And Jen was very aware of this box and had been bugging you for years that this box needs daylight too. You need to get these songs out there. So now I've let everyone into the secret. I guess I have to keep,
Awesome. All right. So this season I'm doing, I have 50 questions that that are geared toward artists. I have a couple of specific music questions in there. I'm asking my guests to pick five numbers between 1 and 50. So give me 5 numbers between 1 and 50, Eric.
7, 23, 11, 44, and 30.
Okay. All right. So number 7. How does music communicate best with us?
I actually think it's different per person.
Mm-hmm.
So music has the ability to register at an emotional level in ways we don't even realize. One of the things I like to think about is, have you ever watched Star Wars without the soundtrack?
No,
it's kind of weird and not nearly as effective. Soundtracks manipulate us and heighten our emotions and carry us on a journey in ways that we don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
You can recite a poem and it can have all of the text that you did, but when you sing it, it suddenly registers at a different part of our brain.
Mm.
And so much of even how songs register us are based on where we grew up, what our culture is, and so forth, the standards of the music that's there. That resonance, how music can communicate with you, in some cases, it comes down to your own experience and your own upbringing and your own tastes. So there are people who don't. I'm not a huge screamo metal fan, but there are people that love screamo metal, and it moves them greatly. Sweet, that's awesome. I applaud that. That's a difference in taste. So, but it is in how it connects to our emotions and our head and our heart simultaneously is the way I like to think about it. And it does so in ways that we don't necessarily always process until after it's done.
Is there a song in your catalog? This is number 23. Is there a song in your current to be made pile or catalog or anything that is over 10 years old that you haven't produced?
Lots. Oh gosh, I have Google Docs of songs going back to 2004, 2005. I actually looked at one the other day trying to figure out what was this. Oh, I remember it now, and it's. I could spend the time to finish it. I don't know that I'm going to. There are some that I will do what I call digital archaeology, and you're digging down a few layers and finding the little shiny piece of glass and going, actually, that was not bad. I could probably use this. I don't think any writing is wasted. Even just the exercise of writing is worthwhile. It builds skills, it builds facility, it builds a back catalog of things that you can then kind of pillage and glue together to make something else. So, but yeah, I've got lots.
Number 11 is, do you really feel like music is the thing that can change the world? That's a great question. I love that question.
That is a great question. I do, but our current music industry does not make it easy.
Yeah.
I have seen songs bring people together in ways that were entirely unexpected. I think it has to be the people that need to be changed have to be open to the songs changing them. And we have a lot of baggage in our society about even something as simple as singing in public. Like singing along to a song. People do it all the time in the car. I'm rocking out and singing to the song, right?
Yeah.
But singing is a fundamentally human act. It's something that we've been doing for a very, very long time. And that ability to raise your voice and hear that voice reflected in other people around you is something unique and magical. And you don't have to be a professional to do it, but it can change you when you do it. And so I think it's just a matter, like if you look over, I like to think about the UK football scene, where if you're going to a football match in the UK, i.e. soccer, they sing all the time. They're all singing chants. Everyone's singing. It's just normal. I think there's access points that can change people and can ultimately change the world, but we have a long way to go.
44 is, hang on, I just lost it. I was gonna be smart and have it ahead of time. 44 is it okay to separate art from artist? If an artist, I'm guessing this question is asking if an artist is a bad person, can you still enjoy their art?
Me personally, I can't. I know people who can, and more power to you if you can. For me, my art is part of my heart. If I put the art out there, you're seeing part of me. If I take that logical conclusion, I may see a piece of music, a piece of art that I like this piece of art. And then you find out about the person and it taints that art because you start seeing the things you didn't see before in it. And you go, okay, actually, that was why they chose that word, or that's why they chose that phrase. it's just, I want to be a fan of the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Really hard to do that when they show themselves to be not good people.
Yeah, I agree. It's really difficult. I agree. I mean, even if it's like the greatest art you've ever seen, right? It's impossible. It's you almost you almost hate yourself for liking it in a certain respect, you know.
And the more you study like music history and whatnot, there's a lot of our foundational music and foundational art that some of the composers were really not good people,
Yeah,
but the distance of time, you don't necessarily see the layers, and
true.
it kind of makes things awkward.
Well, you've actually done something that hasn't been done yet this season, which is select a number and a question that I've already asked somebody of this season. So
Oh
this is
wow!
our first time that we're repeating a question, and that is number 30, and that is, what is the hardest emotion for you to tap into when you write?
That is a very good question. um,
Yeah, I'm glad that was the repeat one.
I think. Whew, um, I think it's context based.
Mhm.
Like there are emotions that I'm not comfortable with. Like I don't enjoy fear. I don't like. I know a lot of people who love horror movies. They love to be scared. I'm not one of them. It's just not part of who I am. And so deliberately trying to tap into fear for a song is hard mode, because that means I have to relive the fear every time I perform the song. Having said that, I have done that. And it makes those songs difficult, but sometimes it makes them necessary.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes the song generates its own fear in a different way. I mean, there's always the fear of I'm going to suck. This is going to be terrible, but but that's a different kind of fear.
Right,
Um,
right. That's not what we're talking about.
um, Trying to tap into just primordial fear, I think, is probably my hardest one.
Mm.
Um, and
Is there horror folk? Is there such a thing? Yeah, really?
yeah,
Like people talking
there's
about Friday the 13th and singing about,
yeah,
Freddy and
there are artists that do horror comedy songs as well.
Mhm.
There's the general rule of thumb is if somebody is passionate about it, someone's writing songs about it.
Hmm. That's interesting. I'd love to hear something like that, especially if it's like 80s like slasher stuff, because that's my jam. So.
Um, Jeff
You don't
Whitmire,
have to. Okay.
go
All
you
right.
check out Jeff Whitmire. He does mostly comedy songs, but he does a lot of like classic '80s like slasher flick songs. So he's done a
Nice.
bunch of
I
stuff
will
with.
do that.
Yeah, I don't remember, but anyway.
Um. So I want I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody where to find you and everything like that. But more specifically, because this is important for the artist, I think for a musician especially, where we go to purchase the album is very important. I think for most people, because most people probably, I mean, it's nice if they put it on their Spotify playlist or anything like that, but Spotify doesn't necessarily give you the greatest return. So tell everybody where they should go to get your music for the greatest return for yourself, because I think that's important.
ericdistad.bandcamp.com.
There you go.
100%. I have debated. I don't know. I would love to hear from folks what their thoughts are. I have not put this album out on Spotify yet because the economics on Spotify are brutal right now. I mean, a
Yeah.
song has to get over 1,000 plays before you'll make a penny, and then it's 0.003 cents per stream. I mean, it's ridiculously low. You're basically giving Spotify free exposure bucks, is kind of in
Yeah.
theory. And
I agree with you.
so it's been like, Bandcamp has been good for the industry still, even with all of its ups and downs and whatnot. It's been the place to go, and until it goes south, it's still been a good discovery platform, and it's still a good place to get. You can listen to the album for free. I am doing a listening party next weekend on the 4th. That's free. So you can basically log into ericdistad.bandcamp.com, and we're going to listen through the album in its entirety. And me and probably several of the folks that were on the album are going to be in the chat talking about the album and the experience and individual songs and stuff like that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, it's one of those. Bandcamp has made it very easy to allow you to do these listening parties. People do multiple per album. I may do another one if there's enough demand for it. But ericdistad.bandcamp.com is the best way. I also have my website, distad.net. It still needs some TLC because it crashed like 6 months ago, and I rebuilt it on the fly, and it still needs some more love. But and I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for just the solo art, solo work. I'm contemplating spinning up a separate Blue Sky account. Have not done that yet. The Faithful Psychics are on Blue Sky and Twitter, and well, we are technically on Twitter, but we don't go there anymore. And Threads and Instagram. But yeah, Bandcamp for sure. Facebook. Those are probably the two main ways, and my website.
And I will say that you all can look forward to a review from me about the other side here coming up soon. I'm almost done writing it. I've written about halfway through it, and I'll do a track by track of this album because it deserves it. And congratulations, my friend. It's really amazing. And thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me. I really appreciate that as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you to the audience and everybody out there. We really appreciate it. We got more stuff coming up. Sunday, we have our This Week in Indie show, which is actually about serial killers, ironically. And then I have a romance author on Monday to do 21 Grams. Ariel Dawn will be joining me. So come check that out. And remember that it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.